Hi, Joe. I looked out the window as we passed the Auckland Zoo. I was almost home. I had been sitting on this bus for over 5 hours now. It was just a short drive to my home in Oakland, where I could finally relax and see my wife Susie again after a 6-month hiatus. I am 27-year-old Air Force Senior Airman Joe Thomas, or Senior Airman on active duty until a few hours ago. I just completed a 4-year tour of duty in the U.S. Air Force as a complex fighter avionics technician. Basically, the guy who keeps the electronic systems of airplanes running. I just returned from my third and final 6-month deployment overseas, this time to Ramstein Air Force Base in southwest Germany. I landed in California at Edwards Air Force Base a few hours ago and decided to take a bus ride home through the California countryside. After being transported from Germany, I wanted to relax and watch the world go by as I drove home. It was also partly because I wanted time to contemplate my future. Now that my active duty service is over, I need to decide what my future career will be. My father, Bill Thomas, worked as an electrician most of his life and ran the family business in Oakland for many years. When I graduated from high school, both my twin brother John and I interned under my father's supervision. I left to join the Air Force once I became a qualified electrician, and my brother stayed on to help mom and dad run the business. I'm not thinking about going back to work there, I'm just thinking about doing something new, something different. Of course, I would have an open offer to work in the family business, and it would be great to see Mom, Dad, Susie, and John on a regular basis again. However, the thought of having to crawl on house ceilings and interact with clueless homeowners again is something I'd rather avoid. And then there's my wife, Susie, a girl I started dating during my internship and married a year after I joined the Air Force. Our marriage didn't turn out the way I had hoped and gradually turned from good to bad. The 6 months leading up to my current deployment started off well, but I felt we were gradually drifting apart during that period. The last 6 months after that I was away, which probably didn't help either. Perhaps I can attribute this to the fact that we've been married for 3 years and together for over 5. So perhaps the newness of our relationship has started to lose some of its excitement, and the question is, how do I get that feeling back? Susie also works in the family business. She basically helps my mom run the business, handle the financials, organize the work, and sell, order, and stock electrical equipment while my dad, John, and the other electricians handle the customer service. I don't know how she would feel about me deciding not to go back into the business, but to do something new. I always figured she only took the job so she could have family around while I was gone, even if it was my family and not hers. Susie was originally from the Midwest and moved to the Bay Area to pursue a business degree. I'm not sure Dad's business would have been half as successful without Susie. Although Mom may officially be the business manager, we all know that Susie is the one running it now. After catching a bus that stopped a few blocks from my house, I decided to walk the rest of the way with my bag in hand and arrived at my doorstep at 4 p.m. I wasn't sure if Susie would be home, as due to a planned trip to Travis Air Force Base, I wasn't due home until 7 p.m., and Susie was scheduled to pick me up from Fairfield when I arrived. However, I was lucky enough to get to Edwards early, and that gave me time to catch a bus across California this afternoon. As I entered the house, I saw that it looked exactly the same as it had 6 months ago. I made my way to the bedroom to drop my bag and noticed that the bed was a mess and the sheets were scattered on the floor. I could hear the shower running, so maybe Susie was home after all. "Are you getting ready to pick me up?" Susie jumped up, letting out a low shriek in the process. "Oh my God, you scared me half to death. What are you doing home already?" "I was dropped off early and here I am." "I'll be out soon, okay?" "I was going to join you. I've spent the best part of the last 24 hours on the road." "I'll be done soon and you can take a shower." "What, no welcome back?" It didn't even look like Susie was happy to see me. I got out of the bathroom, gathered my clothes from my bag, and took them to the laundry room. As I started the washer and left the laundry room, Susie came out into the living room wearing a bathrobe and with her hair wrapped in a towel. "So, are you really done with the Air Force? They didn't make you re-enlist again?" "They tried, but no, my service is over." "Can they get you back in?" "If war breaks out, they can, at least for the next 4 years." Susie nodded at me, then turned and headed for the bedroom. I made my way to the kitchen for a glass of water. This was not the homecoming Susie had hoped for. I was hoping for at least a hug, a kiss, something. She acted like I had just returned from the store, not a 6-month business trip overseas. It was nothing like Susie. I followed her into our bedroom and stood in the doorway, watching as she hurriedly picked sheets off the floor and tidied up the bedroom. Eventually, Susie noticed me standing there. "Are you just going to stand there like that, or are you going to help me?" "I wasn't tidying up, but how come the room looks like a tornado swept through it?" "Have you been sleeping restlessly? And in the middle of the day, too?" Susie stared at me intently for a few moments. "I was late for work this morning. I got home early, so I had time to get ready for your return. And still, you're not happy to see me at all." Susie didn't say anything back to that, continuing to make the bed, so I turned and walked back out into the living room, sitting down on the couch. I don't mean to say that I suspected Susie of fooling around with me while I was away. Our relationship seemed to have grown cooler even before I left for Germany. But the fact that she acted like she didn't care that I was back home after 6 months was alarming. I decided to lie on the couch and not think about it, and after a few moments I dozed off. Joe. Joe! "Dinner will be ready soon. Go take a shower." I woke up from my doze. It was already dark outside, so I must have slept for hours. I got up and walked to the bathroom and started to take a shower. I undressed and stood under the hot water. It made me feel fresh and rested. When I got back to the dining room, Susie had already set the table and was arranging our entrees. It was porterhouse steaks with mashed potatoes, my favorite meal. That smells so good. "Welcome home, Joe." "Thank you. We have ice cream for dessert." I looked at Susie with a smile on my face, enjoying my meal. "Why didn't you call me from Fairfield? I would have picked you up." "I didn't fly into Travis. I landed in Edwards this morning, so I took a bus to get here. I figured you were still at work. Did you come straight home or did you stop by Mom and Dad's?" "No, straight home to the warm embrace of my loving wife." "Sorry, I had such plans for tonight and you surprised me. I didn't mean not to say hello properly." "That's okay, we can catch up after dinner. I have 6 months of catching up to do." Susie continued to eat. She rarely made eye contact with me and seemed to be deep in thought. "Do you still enjoy working with my family?" "Now that I'm done with the Air Force, you don't have to do that anymore." "No, I like working there. I'd tell you if I didn't. Don't you want me to stay there?" "I don't mind you working there. I just thought maybe you wanted to work there while I was gone all the time. But now that I'm back, you can choose what you want to do. I feel good where I am. Your mom is great to work with." "And Dad and John? Do they still take care of you the same way?" "Yes, of course. Your dad relies on Betty and me completely. John is always as nice as he used to be, too. The rest of the guys know I'm the boss, so they treat me well, or else there's no other way." We finished our meal and then sat in the living room eating ice cream. I sat on the couch and Susie settled into a chair instead of sitting next to me. Why did I get the feeling that she was avoiding me? After finishing her ice cream, Susie reached for the TV remote. "Susie, would you mind turning it off? Come and sit with me, please. I want us to spend time together." Susie hesitantly came over and sat next to me on the couch, but instead of sitting down and snuggling up to me, she sat on the edge of the couch, causing me to pull her to me. I leaned in to kiss her, but she turned her head to hug me. But even that felt like I was hugging my sister, not the wife I'd lived with for 3 years. "What's going on, Susie?" "What do you mean?" "Come on, I know when you're hugging me. I've been gone for 6 months and you haven't kissed me once since I got home. I even tried to get you to hug me before, and now you won't sit with me or hug or kiss me. So what's going on?" "I just need some time to get used to you being home again, I guess." "Bullshit. You never needed time before. What's changed?" Susie didn't answer, turning away from me. "Have you been seeing someone?" Susie threw me an angry look and rose to her feet. I thought she was going to speak, but instead I bit my tongue and walked towards the bedroom. "Where are you going? You can't even answer such a simple question?" I heard our bedroom door slam shut. I took a few deep breaths and then followed her into the bedroom, not knowing whether to apologize or ask her to answer the damn question. I found that she had locked the bedroom door. "Susie, what are you doing? Can you open the door so we can talk about this?" All I got in response was silence. I went back into the living room and lay down on the couch. I didn't know what to think. Was Susie mad at me because I asked if she was cheating, or because I was right and called her guilty? Either way, this conversation is definitely not over. To distract myself from thinking about her, I turned on the TV and watched the news for a while before falling back to sleep. Waking up to the morning sun streaming into the living room, I stretched and headed to the kitchen to make myself some coffee. Thinking I should at least ask Susie if she wanted some too, I crept down the hall to the bedroom. The door at least was open, but Susie wasn't there. I checked the bathroom and then went back into the living room. Looking out the window, I saw that her car was gone. Had she really left for work already? I checked my phone and saw that it was almost 8 a.m. By my standards, that meant oversleeping. I brewed some coffee, but decided I'd have breakfast before I headed over to Mom and Dad's family business downtown. Walking into the garage, I found my pickup truck covered in dust. I had asked Susie to drive it occasionally when I was out of town, but it didn't look like she did. I crossed my fingers and turned on the ignition. Nothing. I'm going to need a recharge. Fortunately, where my house is, the road slopes down a bit from the intersection, so I pushed my pickup onto the road and then started down the slope. When I had picked up enough speed, I jumped in the car, put it in second gear, and depressed the clutch. Thank goodness it started. I figured I'd better head to the garage to check her out so they could help if I needed another start. After the garage, I ate a waffle and syrup at the coffee shop next to my parents' house and then parked in front of the Thomas Electrical store. When I walked in, there was a young guy behind the counter, must be one of the new employees they'd hired. "Can I help you, sir?" "No thanks, I'm fine," I replied, heading for the service door to exit back into the storeroom, workshop, and office. "Sorry, you can't go in there, it's for staff only." "That's okay, I'm Joe Thomas." "You're Bill's son from the Air Force?" "Yes, is my family there?" "Yes. I think they're all here now." "Thanks." I walked through the door and looked around the large workshop and storage room. I saw a few guys who had been working here for a while now, picking gear off the racks. At the end of the storeroom, I saw Susie discussing something with my twin brother John. Although John and I are twins, we are not identical twins. That is, we're from different eggs, so we're more like regular brothers than identical twins. We don't even look like each other. I'm 5'6", strong build, sandy-colored hair, and blue-gray eyes. I have my dad's build, but my mom's hair and eyes. John, on the other hand, is about 175 centimeters tall, slim build, with dark brown hair and eyes. So with his build, he looks more like his mom, but he got his hair and eyes from his dad. What was interesting was that it didn't seem like they were talking in the store. It seemed like a private conversation, and I noticed John stroking Susie's arm or shoulder from time to time as they talked. As I was about to go into the office, I saw Susie and John hugging each other. Perhaps he was comforting her after I questioned her fidelity last night. When I walked into the office, my mom looked happy to see me and came over to give me a hug. "It's so good to have you home, honey. Is it true that you've already finished your Air Force service?" "Yes, I didn't renew my contract." "How are you doing, Mom? Are you keeping Daddy and everyone else in line?" Mom laughed at that question. "You know your daddy will do whatever he wants. You're just like him." As soon as I let go of my mom, my dad came over and gave me a hug too. Daddy hugs are a rarity, so I knew he was glad to have me home. "Good to see you, boy. Welcome home." "Glad to be home for good, Dad." "How was Germany this time? Did you enjoy it, or did it become too routine for you?" "It was good. The guys there were great too. But of course I missed all of you." "What are you going to do now? No regrets, or will you think about re-enlisting?" "No regrets, at least not yet. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. It may take me a few days to think about it." "Well, you know you've got a job here whenever you want it." "Don't push it, Bill. He doesn't need to come back here to work." "We've already talked about it." "It's his business too, Betty. It's not just for John." This conversation seemed to be hitting on something that had been brewing between Mom and Dad for a long time. I hadn't told anyone that I wasn't planning on working here, so I don't know why they were discussing it. "It's okay, we can talk about what I'm going to do later. Right now, I'm just happy to be home." The office door opened and John stepped inside and Susie followed him in. "Hi, Joe, it's good to see you home." John walked over and gave me a quick hug. "Hey, little brother, how are you doing? Did you find yourself a nice woman?" John laughed awkwardly at this question. He always had trouble with girls, ever since we were in high school. He always relied on me when he met a girl, and then tried to hook up with their friends while they hung out with us. But ever since I got together with Susie and stopped giving him opportunities, his personal life had tapered off in the last few years. He was more reserved than I was and rarely liked to try new things. The friends we had growing up were always my friends first, and John was friends with them by default. Whatever sport I chose to play, whatever activities I chose to do, John followed me. I think in many ways I joined the Air Force because I knew John wouldn't do that. He would never be with me, so what was the point? For once, I was able to be myself without my brother dragging me around. So, are you going to re-sign with the Air Force, or are you thinking of coming back to work for us? Neither. I'll probably do something else. I haven't decided yet. John nodded in response, but then his father intervened. Hey, Joe, what do you have planned for today? Nothing yet. Why? Well, how about you come and spend the day with me? I have some work I could use your help with and we could catch up. Sure, Dad, why not? Just give me 10 minutes to get everything I need packed up and I'll meet you at the backloading dock. Sure. When Dad went out to the pantry, John followed him too. Susie and Mom went to sit down at their desks when I realized that Susie still hadn't said anything to me this morning. In fact, she hadn't said anything to me since I asked her if she was cheating on me last night. I walked over to Susie's desk, sat down next to her and said in a quiet voice, Can we talk? Or are you going to pretend I'm not here? I'm not sure we have anything to talk about. Oh, we do have a lot to talk about. It just seems to me like you don't want to talk. Susie looked at me with a cold, determined look. Not until you apologize. I'll gladly apologize if only you can answer the question and explain why you've been acting like this since I got home. Hell, I've seen you talk to John more deeply and affectionately than you've talked to me since I got back. Do you still want to be my wife? She gave me another glance before answering. Just because I don't rush you into the bedroom for sex doesn't mean I'm cheating on you. But you didn't want to give me affection either, like we're not even married. Care to explain why? I said I needed time to readjust. To readjust to what? Then I'll ask you again. What's going on, Susie? Nothing. Bill will be waiting for you and I have a lot of work to do. Please just go. I stood up, knowing I wasn't going to get an answer from her now. I walked outside and headed for the truck as my father stowed the last of my things in the back of the truck. You ready, Joe? Yeah, let's go. We arrived at the job site. It was a renovation, but the house was basically gutted. Dad had to install all the new wiring. We got the tools and equipment and went inside. There were carpenters and laborers there, and the foreman greeted us at the entrance. At least we didn't have to deal with the owners of the house. Dad had already started working here yesterday, so we were already halfway there. I started wiring for the outlets and Dad continued wiring for the light fixtures. After about 2 hours, we took a lunch break, sitting in the back seat of Dad's truck. Here, take half of my sandwiches. Your mom always makes too many for me. Thanks. We sat and ate, watching the other kids go in and out of the house. This morning, my mom said something about me not coming back here to work that you guys were discussing. What was that about? Dad looked at me, then shook his head slightly. Your mom thinks it's best if you don't work with us, that it's the best opportunity for John to succeed. I don't agree with that. It's as much your business as it is John's. What, Mom thinks I'm holding him back with my presence or something? She thinks he's happy now, that this is his best chance to get a good job, a family, a happy life. What does that have to do with whether I work with you guys? She's worried he won't have that if you're here. God, I knew he was her favorite, but for her to say she wants me out of the way just to keep him happy, right? Yeah, I know. We've had a lot of arguments about this. I'm not happy with their situation at all. I don't think it's right. Wait, what situation are we talking about? Dad looked at me with a puzzled expression on his face. Then a look of what looked like shock appeared on his face. Shit, you have no idea, do you? About what? About Mom? John? What are we talking about? Dad looked away, shaking his head, then looked at me again. I don't have to explain all this. I thought you already knew. She told us you'd already talked to us about it. What did Mom have to talk to me about? I don't understand. Not Betty, Susie. She told us you knew. For heaven's sake, Dad, just tell me what the hell you're talking about. Susie and John. They've been together since you left for Germany. She said you two broke up before you left. What the hell? No, we never broke up. I sat for a few moments, stunned by Dad's revelation. I've been racking my brain since I got home because she's been acting cold towards me. And now you're telling me she's having fun with my brother? Dad didn't say anything, just looked at me, shaking his head. It was clear he wasn't happy to be put in this position. Both you and Mom knew that John was entertaining my wife while I was overseas, and you were okay with that? No, I wasn't okay with it. Your mom was upset at first too, but eventually she came around and was happy for them. So they secretly or generally tried to keep it a secret? Does everyone in the store know about them? Yeah, everyone knows. Hell, John is the lowest piece of shit I've ever known. He knows I had no idea about it, and then he comes in the morning and hugs me like nothing happened. I'm sorry you had to find out that way. Susie said you two decided to split up when you left for Germany. She and John were best friends even before you left. We just figured they got back together after you left because they were both lonely. No, that just means that John has been trying to steal my wife for some time now. I can't believe that bastard could do that to me. I think he's always equaled you, Joe. More like he's always been jealous of me. So Mom thinks I should leave so John can have my wife and the family business? She thinks I should give him my house, my pickup truck, and all my money? Would that make her happy? Your mom didn't know she was being lied to. She thought you abandoned Susie and she sees her as your own daughter. She thought maybe they could be happy together, but it would be hard for you if you worked with them every day. Goddamn John, that asshole is dead to me now. Come on, Joe, he's still your brother. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be, but in time, I'm sure things will get better for the better. Besides, Susie is just as much to blame as John is. No, John is my brother, my twin brother. If anyone should have my back, it's him. I'll never forgive him for that as long as we live. As for Susie, she really is a lying whore. Last night I asked her if she was cheating on me because that's how she acted when I got home. This morning she had the persistence to ask me to apologize. I'm sorry about all of this, Joe. It's total crap. So tell me, Pa, when you get back to the store, what are you going to tell John and Susie now that you know the truth? Nothing. I think I'd lose my temper too much. I gave them both a hard time when I found out they'd been together since you left, and then I thought you and Susie had broken up. I still thought it was wrong. Your bed was still warm when she let him jump in. And you're still married? They could have at least waited until you were divorced. I sipped some water, contemplating what I was going to do now. I was pissed as hell, but at least one thing they convey to you in training is knowing how to keep your cool when you're emotional. I remembered yesterday when I walked into my house, when I was blissfully unaware of how screwed up my life was. I remembered my bedroom, that goddamn whore. They must have finished before I got there. That's why she was shocked to see me, and probably didn't know if I'd seen John leave when I came in. Are you okay to keep working? I understand if you need some time. I'll go, Pa. I need some time to think about all this. Joe, don't do anything stupid, okay? If you're worried about me hurting John or Susie, don't worry. I'm not going to ruin my life to get even with them. They're not worth it. Those two lying scum can have each other if I care. Call me later, Joe, so I know where you are and that you're okay, okay? Yeah, I will, Pa. I walked down the road towards the store so I could get my stuff in time to pick it up. Well, it wasn't at all the homecoming I was expecting. When I got to the business, I planned to just leave, but I couldn't. I walked around and entered the office where Mom and Susie worked. Mom looked up and saw me. Are you done with that job yet? No, Dad is still there. I just came back to talk to my wife who is cheating on me with my own brother. What are you talking about? You two aren't together anymore. No, Mom, I just found out about that lying whore and my traitor brother. We were never apart. They lied to you and Daddy. Isn't that the truth, Susie? How could you do this to me, to my own damn brother? Susie didn't answer but ran out of the study, no doubt to John. Do you still want to get rid of me, Mom, so John can have my wife and business? I didn't know, Joe. I thought you'd left Susie. That's what they told me. Why didn't you talk to me about it when I called you? since neither you nor Pa mentioned Susie and John once. We thought talking about them would upset you, that you probably needed time to get over it. Well, at least now you know you can't trust them. Have fun relying on them for business. I turned and walked out of the office, not knowing who to be more angry at, my mom or Susie. As soon as I walked out of the office, John came up to me. Step back, John, if you know what's good for you. You need to leave, Joe, and don't come back. This isn't your place anymore. With those words, I stepped forward and slammed my fist into his face, knocking him down with one punch. John had never been good at fighting. He had always relied on me for that. I stood over him and he lay on the ground, blood dripping from his nose. You're dead to me, John. Do you understand? You are no longer my brother. Don't ever call me. Don't ever contact me. If you see me, go the other way. As for Susie, I don't care what you two do, but she needs to get her shit out of my house tonight. She better not be there when I get home later. I stepped over him, walked out of the store, and hopped in my pickup. It had been 3 months since I found out about Susie and John. She moved in with John and I decided to sell our house. There were too many memories of Susie to stay living in it. The house sold quickly, and we had enough to pay off the mortgage, and I had a little left over after splitting the balance with her. I decided to rent an apartment in South San Francisco to be near the international airport and aviation businesses nearby. Within a week, I landed a job at one of the major aviation technical support firms. Apparently, my skills were in demand, which was nice. I'd have to learn a bit about commercial airplanes after my fighter training, though. I finally felt settled. A new place, a new job with a good team. Maybe now I could start to move on with my life. Mom and Dad came to visit me after I got settled, and I even made up with Mom about what had happened. Both Susie and John were still working with them, but Mom had since cut back on some of Susie's responsibilities in the business. It was a Friday afternoon, and as I was finishing up work, a few guys suggested I join them for a Friday night dinner and drinks in downtown South City, and I gladly accepted. We all met at the restaurant at 7 p.m. and grabbed a bite to eat before getting to the drinks. At 8:30 p.m., we headed down Grand Avenue to the nearest bar to start the night for real. While the guys ordered cocktails, I went to the men's room to pee, and when I came back, I bumped into the back of a woman coming out of the women's room. Sorry about that. That's okay, she replied, turning her head in my direction. Maddie. Oh my God, Joe. How are you? Maddie gave me a quick hug. It had probably been 8 years since we'd last seen each other when we graduated high school. Maddie was the girl I lost my virginity to at 18. She was my first real love of my life. She was also the first girl my brother tried to have fun with behind my back. You look great, Maddie, even better than you did in high school. Do you live in South City too? Or are you just visiting? I live in San Bruno near the airport. That's where I work, pretty close by. I'm here with a group of guys I work with. You work at SFO? I work there too. Really? What do you do? I run a travel agency. What about you? I'm an avionics technician. How did you get there? I thought you were going to work in your dad's electrical business? Yes, I did an apprenticeship with him, but after I qualified, I joined the Air Force. And you're no longer in the Air Force? No, I finished my 4-year tour of duty and now I'm happy to be a citizen again. Good, and I heard you got married too. Yes, I was, but not anymore. We're separated. And what about you? There's no way you're still single. Actually, I am, but like you, I've been living apart too for about 6 months now. I nodded toward Maddie, and all my memories and feelings for her came flooding back to me. To me, she'd always been the one that slipped away. Beautiful, smart, and so damn sassy. I'm sorry, I must be distracting you from your date. He'll be coming for you soon. You're still so smooth, Joe. I'm not here with a date, I'm here with some girlfriends. Are they single too? What, am I boring you already? No, never. A few of the guys I hang out with are single too. Why don't we get our friends together and have a nice night out? That actually sounds like a good idea. We're just sitting at the front table. I'm sure we can bring another table. Okay, I'll get the guys. We went back to our tables where my beer was waiting for me. How long were you going to take a shit, Joe? Mike asked me. No, I just met an old girlfriend on the way back. The guys I was sitting with were Mike, Brian, Jay, and Teddy. Teddy was the oldest and led our team. A married man with a lot of experience. Like me, he is also ex-military. The other three do the same job as me, and all of them are unmarried as far as I know. So she has friends? Asked Jay. She does, and I've already arranged for us to join them. They're sitting at that table over there. The guys looked at the three attractive women sitting at the table, and I saw smiles appear on my friends' faces. Damn, they look good. Do you think, Teddy, Joe might need a promotion after this? I'm a married man, don't forget. You guys can buy Joe a beer as a thank you. Not me, I already have a girlfriend. But it could be a happy night for the three of you, added Brian. Okay, let's stop staring at them and go to their place. Just remember, Mike and Jay, Maddie is the pretty blonde with the bob and she's for me, and you can choose who you like out of the other two. Deal, replied Mike as we all walked over to the table. Hey, Maddie. Hi, Joe. Can you guys grab the other table and chairs and bring them over here? As we put the two tables together, Maddie started the introductions. I'm Maddie, and this is Bethany and Kira. Hi, ladies. I'm Joe, and this is Jay, Mike, Brian, and our boss, Teddy. So how do you know Joe, Maddie? Asked Kira. He was the first guy I had a crush on. We were high school sweethearts. Both Kira and Bethany sighed. So you're not married to Joe? Kira continued. Yes, and don't even think about trying to matchmake us. He would have to be seriously humiliated first. Maddie answered for me with a smile on her face. Uh-oh, looks like you screwed up last time, bro, added Jay. Yeah, I screwed up, big time. I looked over at Maddie, who was sitting next to me, and she leaned over to me to whisper. Are you just saying that, or have you finally realized that I'm telling the truth about John? I only recently realized that he was the reason I broke up with my wife. I remembered you and what I told you back then after I realized what kind of man John really was. I really regret not believing you, I whispered back to Maddie. Well, we were young and he was your brother. But you can try to make it up to him if you want to. I really want to. Maddie then gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. Wow, that was fast, Maddie. What did he say to get back in your good book so quickly? Asked Bethany. I don't kiss and tell. Besides, Joe has always been the nicest guy I've ever met. Really? He was your first two? Asked Kira with a wide grin on her face. Kira! That's a little personal in front of all these guys we just met. Just tell Maddie about it. Okay, yeah, he was. Happy now? Maddie replied, laughing. What about you, Joe? Did you have Maddie first too? Yes, she was the first and the best, I replied, receiving back slaps from several guys. Is it hot in here all of a sudden? Teased Bethany, waving her hand around her face. Okay, enough about me and Joe. Who are the single guys here? I need you to keep these two ladies busy. That would be Jay and Mike. Good luck to them, ladies, stated Teddy, shaking his head with laughter. The next hour or two flew by. We were all relaxed and having a good time. Jay and Mike seemed to be doing really well with Bethany and Kira, and Teddy and Brian were enjoying themselves as well. As for me, I enjoyed hanging out with Maddie. I felt so relaxed with her. I'm sure I had a silly smile stretched across my face the whole time. Later, I excused myself to go to the bathroom and Maddie did the same. When I was done, I waited for Maddie in the hallway leading from the restrooms. When she came out, she came over and stood next to me, leaning against the wall. It's so good to see you again, Joe. I mean it. Me too. I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed spending time with you. Just being with you. I know. Maybe it's like what they say about first true love, that you develop a bond that you carry with you for the rest of your life. Maybe, but I'd like to test that theory. Damn it, Joe, you really are very smart. You could start by giving me your number and then taking me out to dinner. What if I want to start by kissing you first? Maddie looked me in the eye and giggled mischievously. Okay, Joe. We can start with that. I leaned over and gave Maddie her first real kiss since we were in senior year of high school. It was better than I remembered. Maddie put her hand on my face and wrapped her other arm around my back. I continued the kiss, wrapping my arms tightly around her. God, that felt so good. Breaking the kiss, we looked into each other's eyes. Wow, that was so good. You still have Joe. I think it's all you, Maddie. God, I need more. I snuggled up to her for another kiss. This time, Maddie broke the kiss a little early. You said kiss, not lots of kisses. We need to get back to the table before I lose control of myself. Do we have to? If it were up to me, I'd take you home right now. Easy, Tiger, you can take me out to dinner first. I'm not that kind of girl, Maddie replied with a cheeky giggle. Okay, but can I get one more kiss before the night is over? Yes, you can, I promise. We went back outside to join the others and I kept humming and couldn't get the kiss with Maddie out of my head. We continued to chat for the next hour and then we went dancing, breaking into pairs. Jay with Bethany, Mike with Kira, and Teddy had already left to go home to his wife and kids. Brian soon followed, leaving the three couples alone. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was dancing to a slow song with Maddie when she told me that she and the girls were going to go home after that song. You better call me Joe, I mean it. That's one thing you'll never have to worry about. I can't wait to see you again, and you haven't even left yet. Maddie rested her head on my chest, and we danced slowly to the end of the song. When it ended, we walked back to our table. When we got back, Jay and Bethany were already sitting at the table, and Mike and Kira were following us off the dance floor. This night was turning surreal. Of course, we couldn't have three couples getting together in one night. Finally, we all went outside and waited for a cab, still separated into couples and having our separate conversations. The first cab pulled up with the three girls, and Maddie gave me a quick kiss and reminded me to call her before jumping in the car with Bethany and Kira. I was left standing there with Jay and Mike. Joe, I really owe you for this. Bethany is amazing. We already have another date, said Jay. Me too. It was Kira who asked me out, and I was too nervous to ask in case she said no, replied Mike. Glad I could help, guys. Tonight was great, better than I could have hoped for. Saturday morning I was feeling a little tipsy, but not too much. I thought about last night and Maddie. I couldn't get her out of my mind anymore. I showered, got dressed, and went to a coffee shop near my apartment to have coffee and waffles. As I sat there, eating breakfast and thinking about Maddie, my phone rang. Hello? Hey, Joe, I just realized I didn't give you my number last night. I just got yours. So make sure you save it, okay? Of course I'll save it. Actually, I was just thinking about you. No, that's a lie. I've been thinking about you all morning. But now I've been thinking about you too. Really? Are you in love with me already, Joe Thomas? If we were in Salem in the 16th century, I'd have you thrown in jail as a witch for putting a love spell on me. My God, did you rehearse that line? Maddie laughed into the tube. Did you like it? Yeah, I liked it. Well, if I'm a witch and I have you under my spell, I can order you to do whatever I want, right? Absolutely. Then I order you to pick me up at my house and take me to lunch this morning. Deal! Send me your address and time and I'll be there. I will. And Joe, thanks for last night. I haven't felt so happy in a long time. I know the feeling. It feels like I've hit the reset button on my life. I have a new place, a new job, new friends, and hopefully someone new and special to share it with. If I find out who she is, I'll scratch her eyes out, Maddie replied with an evil giggle. What? I laughed in response to her unexpected answer. Well, we're not rookies, but I hope we can make it special this time. I agree. Okay, my waffles are getting cold. Don't forget to send me your address. I'll do that right now. I'll see you soon, Joe. Bye, Maddie. I pulled up to Maddie's house and didn't see a single available parking space. Luckily, I saw Maddie coming out of the front door of the building, so I honked and waved. She jumped in my very clean pickup. I had spent 2 hours that morning getting it cleaned up for her. She leaned over and kissed me on the cheek. So, where are you taking me to lunch, Joe? How about Pedro Point? We can grab a bite to eat on the way and then sit by the ocean. It's a bit of a hike, though. Sounds great. As we walked down the path leading to the observation deck, I took Maddie's hand, and she looked up and smiled at me when I did. We sat down on the grass at the end of the trail, looking out at the Pacific Ocean. We sat in silence for a few minutes, just soaking it all in. I pulled our lunch out of my backpack and we started talking, eating the sandwiches we had bought along the way. I was expecting you to take me to a nice restaurant or cafe, but this is so much better. I'm glad you like the choices. I wanted to do something that we'd remember, and just going out to eat isn't the way to do it. Maddie rested her head on my shoulder. You're making me nervous, Joe. What do you mean? Well, just a day ago, I had no idea where you were or what you were doing. Today, it's hard for me to imagine not being with you. Things are happening too fast. I don't want to be hurt again. I'm sorry things worked out this way between us. I should have believed you. No, that's not what I meant. I meant that I was hurt after what I went through with my marriage. I really put it all behind me only a few months ago, and now I'm here with you. With you, Joe. I can't have a casual relationship. It's all or nothing for us, and that scares me. What scares you? Falling in love again? Doesn't it scare you? Knowing what it's like when you're in love and things go wrong. I know what it feels like, but I'm not going to let it stop me. The relationship I had with my ex-wife won't be like ours. You are so different from her. Us together is so different from what I had with my ex. What about your ex? Are you going to say I remind you of him? No, not at all. I always wished he was more like you, or what I remember of you. But what if you're not what I remember you to be? What if you turn out to be more like him than I'd like? Well, I don't know your ex. I don't know what happened between you two. But in my head, I'm still that high school kid who had a crush on you. I've had a few more scars and experiences since then, some good, some bad. But I'm still the same person. I still hope to live a wonderful life and share it with the person I love. Okay, but if you hurt me again, I won't give you a third chance. I won't need a third chance, I promise. Maddie lifted her head and we kissed gently. After lunch, we went back to Maddie's apartment to hang out. Well, better said, make out. I didn't push for sex. Maddie had already stated that she was nervous about how fast things were going, so I decided that I would take things slow and let her determine for herself how fast we would move on. Saturday night, Maddie was planning on going to the movies with Bethany, so we ended up having a double date, Maddie and I and Bethany and Jay. I didn't stay the night, but went to my parents' house for dinner on Sunday, making sure beforehand that John and Susie wouldn't be there. Over the next week, I took Maddie out to dinner twice, and on Friday night we all went together again. Well, 3 couples anyway. It wasn't even 10 p.m. when Maddie leaned over to me as we sat at the table. Joe, can you take me home? Are you feeling okay? Is something wrong? No, nothing's wrong. Just the opposite. I want you to take me home. I looked into Maddie's eyes, raising my eyebrows. Are you sure? Yes, very. Maddie then kissed me softly on the lips. We stood up and I announced to our 4 friends that we were heading home. I think they understood, and no one objected to us leaving so early. When we got back to Maddie's house, I followed her into the living room. Have a seat on the couch, Joe. I'll be right out. Do you want something to drink, Maddie? No, I'm fine. Help yourself if you want. I thought about it, but decided not to drink any more whiskey for fear of alcohol. I hadn't had that much to drink tonight, but maybe it would be better to just drink water. I went back to the couch to get comfortable when Maddie came out of her bedroom. She had put on some interesting clothes and invited me into the bedroom. So we made love. Maddie raised her head to look me in the eyes. I can't believe I'm already so much in love with you. You know that, don't you? I love you too, Maddie, I really do. For the next few weeks, Maddie and I were inseparable outside of work. I often spent nights at her apartment since it was closer to our work. I even started keeping my work clothes and toothbrush at her place to make my life easier. It was amazing how quickly we fell into our rhythm, as if we were finally becoming a part of ourselves, feeling like a complete other half. In the 12 months we'd been together in high school, we already knew each other well. But now that we were older and had more life experience, we were really starting to get to know ourselves on a much deeper level. It was Tuesday night. We had just gotten back to Maddie's apartment after dinner, and I was sitting on the couch waiting for her to return. I was thinking about how happy I was right now being around her. Maddie came back wearing an oversized t-shirt that looked like a dress. She snuggled up to me on the couch. Joe, I've been thinking. You don't have to if you don't want to, but shouldn't we talk about what happened in our marriages? Just so we both know how we got to this point. To what end? so we can understand what happened. I guess I don't want us to make the same mistakes again. Well, okay. Do you want to go first or do you want me to do it? You can, but I have a feeling your story might be a little longer than mine. Okay, where would you like me to start? Well, how you met and what she was like? Not the way you think of her now, but back in the day. Well, we met at a bar when I was a third grader and she was studying business at Mills College. We were both 21 and she seemed nice, but not too talkative. I had to work hard to get her to at least talk to me. Well, at least have a few drinks. I don't remember thinking she's the one or anything like that. I think we gradually gravitated towards each other over time as we started dating. Anyway, I joined the Air Force after my internship, proposed 6 months after I joined, and we got married about 6 months after that. In the service, relationships aren't easy, especially if your partner doesn't go with you. She had a job in the city, but she lived in our house in Oakland. We'd just bought a small 3-bedroom house, so we were apart a lot more often than we were together. But what was she like? What were you two like together? Well, she was determined, more than stubborn. I thought she always seemed to have a hard time expressing her feelings or emotions. She tended to keep her cards to herself, even with me sometimes. But she could be warm and cheerful when she was in a good mood. I felt like it was my job to always get her in the right mood, and sometimes I just couldn't worry about it. When I was sent overseas, I think in some ways it helped our relationship as the separation made us miss each other more. When I came home for the first month or so, we were doing great. I could tell she felt lonely when I wasn't home, so I talked Mom and Dad into hiring her to help run the business. That way, she had a family and it was easier for her. We needed 2 incomes to pay the mortgage, so her staying abroad with me was not satisfactory. Although we could rent out the apartment, and then she could travel with me, I guess. When did she start working with your parents? It was during my 3rd year in the Air Force, about a year and a half after we were married. Were you around much after that? Is that when you started having problems? Yes, I wasn't around much. I was in Germany for the latter part of my 3rd year, and then the last 6 months of my last year. Those 6 months in between I spent at Edwards in one of the test squadrons, so I only came home for weekends. Did she start getting close to John during that time? Yes, I think so, yes. I mean, they always got along fine, but I never suspected there was anything else going on. While I was working at Edwards, our relationship started to deteriorate, and looking back, I think it probably had something to do with John pursuing her at work. So do you think maybe she thought she could trade her brother for someone who would be home all the time? She knew my military service was coming to an end, and I never said I was going back into the service. So basically, she started dating John when I only had 6 months left. Maybe she just fell in love with him. He can be very persuasive. But it didn't work on you, did it? No, but I wasn't away from you most of the time and I was around John all the time. But I wouldn't do that because I love you and it would be so wrong. I mean, I was so disgusted when he hit on me that night at the party, but I was a little drunk, and he just kept trying to take advantage of me because I didn't tell him straight up to back off. Why didn't you tell him? He was your brother. I knew he was a little drunk too, and at first I thought he was just being a jerk. But then it started to get out of hand. You said he kept groping you. What was he actually doing? He would come up behind me and grab my tits. Then put his arms around me so I couldn't break free, even when I was yelling for him to stop. Everyone thought it was funny and we were just fooling around. I mean, there were other people there fooling around too. I remember being pissed that you weren't there because there's no way John would have tried that shit if you were around. I was pissed at myself too for not leaving the party at that point, but I was sure John wouldn't ruin my night. Yeah, I'm sorry too. Anyway, he caught me in the hallway as I was coming out of the bathroom and pushed me into one of the bedrooms. Well, you know the rest. I've never been in a situation like that before, where someone tried to rape me and no one tried to help me. They'd probably think I wanted to because they always saw John with you and me together. That maybe I was just fooling around with you while you were away playing soccer. Well, it's good that you can at least stand up for yourself. I hope his balls still hurt. So what about your story? I met my ex Simon when we were both sophomores in college. We started dating and got engaged about a year after we graduated. We got married about 2 years after that. So you dated for a few years before you got engaged, and then it took a few more years before you got married? Why did it take you so long to bond? I don't know. Right now, I'd like to think that maybe we both knew it wasn't meant to be or something. That maybe we were content with what we had at the time. But you loved him, didn't you? Yes, in the beginning, but probably like your relationship, we started to slowly drift apart with each year we spent together. I think we eventually got married because we were trying to save our relationship, and also because of pressure from family and friends. We only lasted about 6 months, marriage. So what went wrong? Did you just decide to end it? No, he lost his job, then he didn't like his new job. He started drinking more, and then he started getting violent. Really? He started hitting you? Verbally at first, then some pushing and kicking. By then, I was ready to leave, and one night he hit me when we had an argument. I don't even remember what the argument was about, but he came home drunk and angry and just started coming at me like I was to take out his frustration on me until he ended up hitting me. It was late, so I demanded that he sleep on the couch that night, and the next morning he started coming at me again, and then he hit me again. That was it. Did you go to the police? Guys who hit women usually do it again. They need it on their record so that when the next woman complains, they'll be aware of it. Yes, appealed. I got a restraining order and he was forced to move out. I haven't seen him again since that day. Well, I'm sorry you had to go through that, both with John and Simon. I hope your other boyfriends treated you well. You're my only boyfriend and so far you've treated me well. So you didn't date anyone else in college until you met Simon? There must have been guys chasing you all the time. There were, but at the time I was still worried about you. I didn't want to go on dates or anything like that. I just did my studies and went out with my girlfriends. They were the ones who encouraged me to start dating the next year. I got a lot of references to nuns. Madeline's mother was a favorite. I giggled and Maddie hit me with a pillow. Tell me, Joe, do you think you'll ever forgive John for what happened? He is your twin brother, after all. No, I don't see that ever happening. Even forgetting for a moment about Susie or you. It's that he did that to me, that he betrayed my trust like that. I've thought about it a lot since Susie left, about how even though he was my twin brother, we were never good friends. Maybe if we were identical twins, things would have been different, but we weren't alike at all. He was always there for me, but I never enjoyed spending time with just him. We were always with other people. And my friends, my girlfriends, he tried to get his own. Looking back, I realized that I never liked him at all, that if he wasn't my brother, I wouldn't have been friends with him. What's that saying, Joe? That you can choose your friends, but not your family. Yeah, but it's hard when your family is always there for your friends. Mom and Dad expected me to take him everywhere with me, that he would always be there for me. I don't know why he never wanted to do his own thing, to have his own friends. That's largely why I went into the Air Force, to finally get rid of him. Well, now you're rid of him. Let's go to bed, Joe. I need to snuggle for a while. Wait, you said we should talk about this so we can learn from it. What exactly did we learn? Not to fall in love with shitty people, I guess. That's it? That we made bad choices about the people we loved? That and the fact that you should never settle for second best. Okay, I can agree with that. Well, then I'll take my first best girlfriend to bed. Maddie leaned over and kissed me on the lips, then stood up and held out her hand to lead me into the bedroom. The next few weeks passed almost exactly like the previous ones, but now I could hardly remember what life had been like before I went back to Maddie. I felt so at ease and at ease. Maybe this is what it means to be truly happy and in love. Last weekend, Maddie came with me to my parents' house for lunch, and Mom and Dad were happy to see her again. They were also happy to see how happy I was to have broken up with Susie. I moved all my stuff into Maddie's apartment that week, since we were practically living together already, and it just didn't make sense for us to pay rent twice. It had still been just under 6 months since I had legally separated from Susie and filed for divorce, but Maddie's divorce had just been finalized 8 months after filing, so hopefully I only had a few more months to go too. Mom's 50th birthday was Thursday, but they threw a party late Saturday night at Mom and Dad's house. Lots of family and friends were in attendance, about 60+ guests in all. It was one of those occasions where it was impossible not to see John and Susie and not offend Mom if I decided not to come. I decided I wasn't going to let them dictate my relationship with my parents. We arrived at Mom and Dad's house around 4 in the afternoon, and the place was already crowded. The party was in the backyard where a large gazebo had been erected. As we walked through the house, greeting my cousins, uncles, and aunts along the way, we ran into Mom coming out of the kitchen. When she saw us, she stopped in place and smiled broadly, then hugged us. "Oh my gosh, you two look just like from a daytime TV romance show. You both look just gorgeous." "You look great too, Mom. Great for a woman who isn't even a day over 40. "Oh, stop it, Joe. Is that how you got a beauty like Maddie?" "That's not all, Betty. Your son is sometimes incorrigible when it comes to smoothness. But he always talks seriously. That's another trait he inherited from his father. Bill was always a sweet talker too." "Well, happy birthday, Betty." "Yes, Mom. Happy birthday, and I hope this party is one I'll remember for a long time." I handed my mom the present and kissed her on the cheek. "Thank you both. Joe, Susie, and John are outside. Is that going to be a problem?" "Not from us. It's your night, so enjoy it." While I wasn't going to cause any problems at Mom's birthday party, I wasn't going to talk to John or Susie either. We walked out into the backyard and Dad, spotting us, headed toward both of us. "Hi, Joe. Hi, Maddie." "You look amazing, Maddie. How my son could convince you to fall in love with him again is a mystery to me." Dad shook my hand and kissed Maddie on the cheek. "I don't know, Bill. Your son is a very attractive man. Maybe he got that from his father." "Handsome and smart. You did a good job, Joe." "Yes. Mom looks great for her birthday. She looks very happy." "You know your mom, for the most part, it's a cover-up. She's been preparing and worrying about this party for the last few weeks. But I hope she can relax soon and start having a good time." "I hope so too, Pa." "Joe, your brother and Susie are there. Do you mind?" "Yeah, as long as they don't come over and start talking to us, it'll be fine." "Okay, I'll let them know to leave you alone, okay?" "Okay." We mingled with the other guests, most of whom were relatives or friends of my parents. Some I knew, some not so well. Everyone seemed to know who I was, though perhaps with my height and build I was hard to miss. Most of the guests swooned over Maddie, all talking about how beautiful she was. At one point, Maddie went into the kitchen to help her mom bring in more food, and I noticed that Susie followed her. I shook my head. Susie has no idea who she's dealing with if she's talking to Maddie. A few minutes later, Susie came out of the house looking a little upset. She walked over to John, and I could see them trying to cover up what was clearly some kind of argument. Susie then moved away from him and sat down in her seat away from where John was standing. Then Mom, Maddie, and one of my aunts carried trays of food from the house to the gazebo. I watched Maddie. She looked back and forth at John and me with a slight devilish smile on her face. God, I love that woman. After Maddie helped with the food, she approached me with an expression of confidence and, dare I say it, smugness on her face. "You've been naughty, haven't you?" I whispered quietly, as Maddie stood next to me. "You have no idea. But I'm dying to know what happened." "I'll tell you when we get home. Just enjoy how uncomfortable Susie and John will be the rest of the night." I looked at Maddie, unable to hide a smile, and kissed her gently on the lips. "As soon as my divorce is finalized, I will marry you. I don't need an engagement. I just want to marry you as soon as I can. Will you at least ask me if I want to marry you first?" "I'll ask. I'll get down on my knee and do anything. I'll even serenade you if it helps." "I'm looking forward to it, Joe." "I'm not sure about your singing, though. That's probably the one thing you're not good at." "Good, I'll hire someone then." I giggled along with Maddie. Maddie was right. Susie and John hardly spoke for the rest of the evening, and when they did, there was obvious hostility towards him in the look on Susie's face. I don't consider myself an angry person at all, but I have to admit it was remarkable. Later, I went into the house to go to the bathroom, and as I was leaving, John was standing outside the door waiting his turn. He had misgiving written all over his face. When I stepped toward him, he stepped aside to make room. I threw him a dismissive glance as I walked past and shook my head slightly. That was the only interaction I had with John all evening. After the party, I drove Maddie back to her apartment, which was actually our apartment now. "So, you want to know what happened at the party?" I nodded my head yes. "Well, I went to the kitchen to join your mom in preparing some trays of food, but she had to go to the ladies first." So I was in the kitchen by myself when Susie came in and stood next to me and started putting food on one of the trays. Maddie rested her head on my chest as she continued her story. Susie started by turning to me. So you're Joe's new girlfriend and I'm his wife, Susie. Soon-to-be ex-wife, you mean? Besides, I'm not Joe's latest girlfriend. I'm Maddie, Joe's first girlfriend, the first girl he fell in love with, and soon-to-be his wife. I think that surprised her a little. Surely it can't just be Maddie. Who's telling the story, Joe? Maddie continued. I have to thank you, Susie, for giving up a great guy like Joe for a little worm like John. Thanks to you, Joe and I have fallen in love again. Joe already broke up with you once. What makes you think he won't do it again? Joe didn't break up with me last time. I left him because he didn't believe me that his dear brother would try to steal his girlfriend away from him. John has experience in this business, you know. He wants everything Joe has: his friends, his girls, his wife. John knows how to get his way. He didn't get his way with me. I would never stoop that low. He tried to force himself on me physically. You have such a nice guy. Seriously, you better watch him when he's drunk or angry. Guys like that can't handle rejection. She looked at me for a few moments before leaving the kitchen. I know that look, Joe, like she knew what John was really like. I think maybe he was already violent with her, maybe not physically yet, but I think she realized. That explains their fight when she went back to John. She didn't want to be around him the rest of the night after that. I bet he was already being manipulative with her to get her to do what she did. Chances are John could have been very different when you weren't around. It was as if your presence was the only thing holding him back. Though he could have been a real conniving asshole when you weren't around. Shows how well you can know a person. Why didn't any of you tell me he was like that? What, tell you that your twin brother you love is a total asshole who probably despises you? Besides, he was always around when you were around, and it was almost impossible for our friends to talk to you about him when he was always around. I didn't want to because I was afraid you wouldn't believe me. At least until that party, and even then I was right, you didn't believe me. Yeah, I can't believe I didn't see through his shit. I was so damn gullible. No, Joe, you're just a decent man who wants to see the best in people. Don't ever change that because of him. Maddie turned off the shower and picked up the towels. Story's over, let's go to bed. Besides, there's something else I need to tell you. I quickly dried myself off and followed Maddie into the bedroom, snuggling up to her under the sheets. So what else did you want to tell me? Want to guess? Okay, that I'm the best lover you've ever had. Well, yeah, but that's not an answer. That you can't wait to marry me? Again, yes, but that's not an answer. That you're the most gorgeous woman I've ever laid eyes on. Come on, Joe, stop playing around. I took a moment, feeling her breath on my face as we lay together in the dark. Okay, then I'm going to assume you're pregnant. Yes. I kissed Maddie slowly. It seemed to take forever. So? Well, lucky I don't want an engagement, huh? Can't have you walking down the aisle all frumpy. How far have you gotten? Not very. I went to the doctor this week for tests to make sure. You're not mad we didn't talk about this first, are you? I was changing my birth control. That's how I think it happened. No, I'm thrilled. I really am. I can't wait for you and me to get married, buy our own house, and have 4 kids. 4? Wait, I want to keep my figure, you know that. I'm sure you'll be the prettiest mom in the PTA, the slimmest MILF in the Bay Area. You say the nicest things, Joe. Yes, I love you, Maddie. I love you too, Joe. My divorce was finalized less than 2 months later, about 7 months after I broke up with Susie. Maddie and I were married 2 weeks later, and it was a small wedding with family and friends. Bethany and Kira were her bridesmaids. Joe and Mike were my best men. We bought a house in San Bruno. Some renovations were needed, but my dad and the guys at work helped me out a lot. My son Mason was born 6 months after Maddie and I were married. Maddie is pregnant again with our second child. Scans showed it was a healthy baby girl. My mom and dad are now happy grandparents. They are still running the family business, but without John and Susie. Susie left John a few months after I remarried. I found out from my parents that she had gotten a restraining order against my brother and moved back to the Midwest to be with her family. Maddie was right. He eventually became violent with her. It was too far for my parents and they forced him out of the business. He's still a silent partner like me, but now works for another contractor somewhere in San Jose. As for Maddie and I, Dad was right. Everything worked out for the best. We couldn't be happier, and Maddie is still the love of my life. The end,